Hey, Blue Table fans! So I've had all of a whopping one game of Warhammer 7th Edition, but I was thinking about the Psychic phase, which is a new thing, everyone's talking about it, and I wanted to just put some math out there for it that I find is interesting. So let's just start making a diagram here. So let's say you have a Psyker, and each of these are level 2 Psykers, just for the sake of argument. So now what happens, and this is one way to think about this in your mind as you're doing your own Psychic phase. So hopefully you can see that. Let me just double check here. Yeah, you can see that. Perfect. All right. So what happens is every Psychic phase, each of these Psykers generates 2 dice. 1, 2, and then another 2. So generates 4. And then you generate D6 dice. So let's call that 4 as well. 1, 2, 3. Let's be generous. A D6 typically has an average roll of 3.5, so 3 or 4. So now what happens is each of these guys, in fact, let's put little purple stars here for the number of powers they're going to have. 1, 2, 1, 2. Now, they may have as many as 3 powers. So, but the question is, how many of these powers can they get off? So, if you go back to last edition, a Psyker with 2 powers could actually do each power with a leadership test. So, the leadership test, let's do the probabilities on this. If their leadership is 9, and by the way, here's how to do this. On 2d6, a roll of a 12 only happens 1 time out of 36. Out of 36. So if you roll 2d6, there's 36 possibilities of what the dice combinations could be. So only a 6 and a 6 is a 12. This is failures now. So 11 is 2 possibilities. You can get a 5 and a 6 or a 6 and a 5. If you go down to 10, there's 3 combinations that will make that. A 6 and a 4 and a 6, and a 5 and a 5. So if you add that up, that's 6 chances out of 36. Don't know if I'm expressing that right. 6 out of 36 that you will fail the Psychic test on leadership 9. If it's 10, it's only 3 out of 36. And if you reduce that down, the chance of failing on leadership 10 is 1 in 12, and the chance of failing on leadership 9 is 1 in 6. So why is that significant? You know what, I'm just going to leave that. Okay, so it's that in the old edition, out of 2 powers, and let's say leadership 9, conservative, you would be getting off, there's like an 83% chance you get off each of them. So that means if you do that, you'd actually be manifesting successfully, and this doesn't count deny the witch or other factors, such as perils and dying or whatever it is. Of course, your psychic power would still go, I think, if you perils yourself to death. So I'm not including all that rigmarole, but anyone's welcome to comment and, throw that in there. So that would be, you'd actually be manifesting something like 1.7 powers per turn. Now I'm going to compare that to the new system, where this is the dice, the average dice that are going to come into your pool. So if you throw 2 dice at a power, here's how that works. Let's do a little diagram here. So on a 4 up, you get it, and a 1 through 3. So dice 1 is 1 through 3, 4 through 6. 1 through 3, 4 through 6. Okay, so in this quadrant, you're successful, yes. In this one, you're successful with 2 charges. But this doesn't account that some of them may need 2 charges to go off. And then, obviously, no. So you have a 75% chance with 2 dice of getting off a power. So if you look at it, just in this very simplified version here, you've got this dice 6. If you match it with that in the pool, you've got 2 dice to throw at every power with a 75% chance. 75, whereas over here, it was about an 83% chance. So looking at this very simplified version, it actually got, psychic powers got a little bit weaker just in terms of strict, evened out probabilities. But, as we know, no plan survives contact with the enemy. That if you have 2 psychers at level 2, it's like when I used to play 2 Spirit Seers and each of them had 2 powers, I was rarely doing both powers every turn. So this is where things get interesting, which means assuming I only have 1 power each turn that's relevant or that has a target or whatever it is, I can actually throw more dice at each power. And that obviously, if you throw 4 dice at 1 power, your chances are much higher of getting it. Now what happens is if you keep adding psychers, so let's say, because right now I'm looking at putting in 4 Farseers. Haha! By the way, this is my Doom Eldar list that I'm coming up with. Already we have people inquiring, they're like, hey, what would it be for 5 Spirit Seers and 10 Warlocks or whatever? I mean, it's crazy with the Psychers. So anyway, and each of these guys would get 4 powers. Obviously, even if you had 10 powers each, it wouldn't matter. Well, if you take them from the same list, let's say these guys only have 3. All that gives you is more options. You can't obviously manifest all of those powers. That's crazy. So what happens is this guy gets 3 dice. 3 dice. This guy gets 3 dice. And this guy gets 3 dice. Now, what's weird is now what you can do is obviously you can pool all this together and throw really strong powers out there. And this is where Psychic Phase really got amazingly powerful. Is because you don't just throw like a ton of powers. You could very well just say, okay, because if you get the right power off at the right time, boy, that's huge. But the fact is, all these Psychers are sucking up points, and they can't manifest all these powers that they have. And what happens is these matching dice, which made the probabilities similar, they run out pretty quick. So having more Psychers, now they have to power it all on their own dice. So the question is, how does that work with Psychers just powering their own stuff? Like, what if you didn't get D6 dice? What if you just had your own power dice here? Well, they could manifest this guy, for example. He could throw 2 dice and get, as we determined, a 75% chance of getting his power off. Now, if it's a warp charge 2, there's only a 25% chance of getting that off. Both of those dice need to go. Obviously, the probabilities become increasingly complex once you variate the warp charge requirements of the powers vis-a-vis the dice. But guess what? That will be available out there. Somebody, somewhere, somebody will math hammer this just incredibly. So, and then you can manifest a second power with a 50% chance of doing it. And actually, this isn't too bad, because doing it this way could really make your opponent like, do I throw a dice at it? Like, there's critical numbers where, so for example, if you needed a 6 for a Deny the Witch, let's say it was a Blessing. If you needed 6s to nullify those, okay, that is an uphill battle to get rid of those. So, I gotta tell you, I like this system. I'd love to see this in Warhammer Fantasy Battle. So anyway, so my dice pool is going to be like 12 plus 4 is like 16, which means I could really manifest, like if you throw 4 dice at something, it's astronomically improbable that you will, in fact, what is it, 2, 4, 8, 16, there's only 1 in 16 chance that you'll fail to manifest with 4 dice. Is that right? Alright, anyway, 1 and 2 with 1 chance, 1 and 4, yeah, I think that's right. Okay, so anyway, where's I going with that? Yeah, so your booster dice here, those actually run out pretty quick as you try and manifest more and more powers. But it's not too bad. So those higher level guys, they're not going to manifest 3 powers, but they never really did anyway due to lack of targets, lack of relevancy, you know, whatever it was. And so it's not too bad. 3 dice, like pick 1 power and throw 3 dice at it. That is not too bad. That is really not too bad. Well, folks, oh, and I'd like to point out that this system does hearken to a lot of RPGs, notably White Wolf stuff, the idea of successes on dice. I wonder if anybody could name an RPG earlier than the White Wolf World of Darkness stuff that used successes. Who knows, maybe there's something in the 1800s that was like that. So guys, this is my thoughts on the psychic phase and how it's going to look. Is that it does become a little bit weaker after a certain point if you keep adding psychers to it. They kind of have to power their own stuff. But psychic level 2 is not too bad for just generating, you know, like throwing 2 dice at 1 power, because it's highly unlikely that you're going to perils on that. In fact, it's 1 in 36. That's about less than a 3% chance. But that does grow if you start throwing 3 or 4 or even 6 dice at it. In fact, yeah, somewhere out there, somebody's calculated this probability. Well, folks, thanks for tuning in. It's much appreciated. And do remember that you can check the liner notes for an email to set up a project with us. We do allow people to pay in as much as fourths, which helps a lot. But typically it's half down, half on completion. And we are definitely your reliable and secure choice for having your miniatures done up. And once you start, it is a real luxury to have it done. So thanks for tuning in.